Howdy folks, Kaloth here, and we've got a lot of news to talk about today. Meathead, the community manager, has been hyping up for a couple of weeks now that he's working on a big post that he was just waiting for approvals on and then was going to get it updated and posted today. That happened, and we got a lot of information that honestly I don't think anybody saw coming. Earlier this week on Tuesday, we got set 2 of Galactic Legend Leia's requirements. Well, today we have set 3. We have all of Leia's requirements in front of us, and they're great. They're fantastic. We're going to talk about that a little more. We've also got a little bit more information about the crate raid. Honestly, most everything is good. I've got a few small quibbles that we'll talk about, but overall, this is just fantastic information that we've got. So let's dive into that. We've got Galactic Legend Leia Organa information is the title of the post. And going into it, they start with a word from CGABC, the designer who worked on Galactic Legend Leia. And as an aside, and I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, I actually love that they've been doing this. Not just doing kit reveals and news posts, but also taking direct quotes from the developers. This is something I've really loved that hopefully they continue to do. The dev quote is, "Taking such an iconic character like Leia Organa and having her feel like the powerful tactical leader of the rebel forces has been one of the most compelling challenges I've had to face. I wanted her to be a reflection of the strong leader she was by willingly being on the front lines and never being afraid to face down those enemies who sought to see her defeated. As the leader, Leia was able to take control of the harshest situations and able to fight on her terms. To reflect this in the gameplay, the rebels should dictate the flow of the battle, and therefore nobody should be manipulating their abilities in a way to catch the rebels off guard. So, Leia levels the battlefield by making both teams immune to cooldown manipulation." Sorry to teams like JMK Cat with the cooldown reduction on Ahsoka. Obviously, similar things with Traya and Nihilus, right? No cooldown manipulation. Your cooldowns are your cooldowns. End of story. The quote continues, "When I was working on the Ultimate and presented the initial idea, the feedback was that it was strong but needed something that really tipped the power scale in their favor. I looked at how the animation would be impacting the battlefield, and it just felt like the enemies would be shaken up and the ground would be split. It felt like the entire enemy team should be fractured." So this is our first hint at her ultimate being an AoE Fracture. Finally, the goal was to provide players with tools throughout the kit to make strategic decisions to take down the priority targets she would be facing. Capturing her ability to empower those around her was also something important for her to express through her synergies and decision making. On offense, her capabilities are competitive with the top squads in the game, and the squad she leads is a great option against almost any other squad. During testing, empowering the right ally with Leia's abilities has led to some significant damage output, oftentimes eliminating an opponent in one blow. So, a lot to take in there. The big takeaways are that A, we now know that Leia, her team is going to make the entire battlefield, both your side and the opponent's side, immune to cooldown manipulation. So again, that's going to hinder those teams that rely on that. Like, as I mentioned, the one that comes to mind most easily for me is Jedi Master Kenobi and Commander Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka has her Force Whirlwind, or her Force Leap, that's an instant kill the first time she uses it, that starts on a long cooldown. Jedi Master Kenobi has the ability to use an ability on her and reduce her cooldowns to 0, basically allowing her to immediately use that instant kill. Well, with Leia, that's just not going to be an option. Also, we've got the information that there's going to be an AoE Fracture as part of her ultimate. Says the animation for the ultimate would impact the battlefield and make it look so that the enemies should be shaken up and the ground would be split. I'm not 100% sure what that would be. There's been a lot of speculation on what her ultimate could be. Maybe calling in an Ewok army, maybe transforming her into Jedi training Leia. I don't know that either of those really feels like it fits with that description. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what that turns out to be. And then finally, the description that we've kind of heard Crumb already say, that Leia really is a universal offensive tool. It sounds like she is much less about defense and much more about having a toolbox of offensive options to be able to handle just about any team in the game, which honestly is interesting. In GAC and in Territory Wars, it is true that a defensive team is going to be more valuable than an offensive team, right? An offensive team, you're only going to be able to take out one of your opponent's units, or one of your opponent's squads, rather. Whereas a defensive team could soak up multiple squads for your opponent, right? So there's more value in defense, but at the same time, having a good offensive Swiss Army knife lets you more reliably get full clears, but it also helps kind of future-proof the meta against those teams that can just stonewall on defense. Having a few universal hyper offense teams can kind of help break that down. So this actually, I know people are going to say, I wish I had a defensive GL. I actually think this may be a good thing for the meta going forward. Obviously, the devil's in the details. We'll see how that plays out. More important information we have here is that Leia's squad is going to be used in the coming months for Conquest, for Galactic Challenges, for Datacrons. Obviously, we expect all that. And economy events. There's going to be a new tier of Endor escalation specifically for GL Leia, it sounds like. This sounds very similar to Jabba the Hutt, Smuggler's Run 2. One of the biggest reasons you want Jabba is access to that event and those mod slicing materials. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be big. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's Omicrons, maybe it's Zetas, maybe it's Omegas. What I'm hoping is that it is either signal data or lower level relic salvage like bronzium wiring. That would be phenomenal to see. So she's going to be a big deal for your economy, which is going to give her longevity past this raid. Obviously, we know that she's going to be used in the raid. This is going to give her more longevity, kind of like Java, once Endor rotates out of the raid rotation there. So, really good there. Speaking of her squad, it was important to us that players would not need to take apart their CLS squad to create the ideal Leia team. This has been kind of a point of contention inside the community. So you should be able to do this. You should be able to build a strong GL Leia while keeping your CLS squad intact. And a key part of pulling this off was designing Captain Drogon alongside her. So Captain Drogon, we assume, is going to be a marquee. We do now know that he is going to be a requirement at Relic 7, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But he is alongside Leia in the design, right? They designed Drogon to go with Leia, kind of like they designed Commander Ahsoka to go with JMK. They designed Maul to go with Lord Vader. A little different situation there, but they were designed with each other in mind, and Drogon is there to kind of make sure that your CLS squad can remain intact. So what squad Leia ends up with, we'll see how that's going to work. I would really love to see the big three come together, right? Leia, Han, and Luke. This is what people were saying during the sequel trilogy, and we didn't get it. So hopefully here we'll get this. We'll get a way to have Leia, Han, and Luke on the same team, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be Raid Han or Commander Luke Skywalker, because they're intending for the CLS team to be able to stay together, which is pretty awesome. So, set 3 of GL Leia's requirements are Captain Drogon at Relic 7, Commander Luke Skywalker at Relic 7, Bausch or Boosh, I don't know how you pronounce it, Bausch or Boosh, Leia Organa at Relic 5, 3PO and Chewie at Relic 7, and Lobot at Relic 3, with the news that Lobot is getting a rework. And that's really big. So Lobot is kind of the trash requirement here, at least under his previous kit. But A, he's only Relic 3, and then B, he's getting a rework. And what I'm most excited about here is when you think Lobot, you think about Lobot alongside Lando Calrissian. Lando is required at Relic 5 for Jedi Master Luke, and he's required at Relic 5 for Galactic Legend Leia. With Lobot getting a rework, I'm hoping that that's not only going to raise Lobot's viability, but also going to raise Lando's viability. So we'll see how that works out, but very excited about that. A couple of things to point out here. Number one, yes, the nesting doll requirement is here in the form of Commander Luke Skywalker, who's one of the easiest journey guide characters to get, right? Does not require relics, does not require anybody at gear 12 even. Very easy character to get and very impactful character to get. No relic 8s in this. The only relic 8 needed for Leia is going to be R2-D2. You've got characters like Bausch that lead into things like Jabba the Hutt. So either A, you're an established player who already has that, or B, as a new player coming in and getting Leia, that's going to kind of have that overlap with another Galactic Legend that's going to help give your account some focus, right? It's just, it's a lot of good stuff here. But what I was going to point out, there's no ship requirement, right? People have been wondering, well, do I need to get my Raven's Claw up, or do I need to get Profundity up? You don't, unless there's an additional requirement that is somehow not in set 1, 2, or 3. It does not look like there are going to be ships required, so that's very exciting. Adding to the list of characters for the raid, since they announced the raid, GL Leia, Captain Drogon, Scout Trooper, Princess Nisa, and Captain Rex will all be usable in the new raid. So that's kind of expected, but that's good to know. It doesn't look like there were any other additions to that. Now, let's talk about the raid, because there are some updates for that. They said the rewards in the upcoming raid are in parity with the existing crate rewards. And they've mentioned this in the in-development post, and there was some confusion over, well, is this still going to be how they look at it? Because several things about their currency changed. They have said now officially, when the Speederbike Pursuit raid, the Endor raid, arrives, it's going to become the new featured raid, and Mark III raid tokens are going to be removed from crate and are going to be added to Endor, or Speederbike Pursuit. Says, just like in crate, if you hit Guild Milestone 1 or higher, you will receive Mark III currency. I don't like this. And I've said as much to Meathead. I actually had a short conversation with him about this when he posted this in Discord. I don't particularly care for this. I don't like the idea of having to re-earn the rewards that you already were earning before. So that's one thing. We're on a treadmill now, just like you are in several PvP game modes, and there's a meta shift. We're now on that same treadmill in PvE, where when the meta shifts and the new content comes out, you have to adjust to that content, but you're not earning anything new alongside it. You're just earning what there was before. Now, there's time for this to change, but I do think that's not a super sustainable way forward. I think that raids need something new and exciting for players to work towards. At the same time, I am appreciative that we're having this rotating, not rotating, but more frequently updating PvE content in the form of new raids. Getting new raids is fun, it's exciting, we like the content, but I just wish we had something new to work towards in those raids. My other concern, and this is again something I've brought up, is for early and mid-game players, having content that takes 8 or 9 months and then goes away. Well, you may have to use 8 or 9 months to farm teams and characters, right? These are not things that early and mid-game accounts are agile enough to adjust to in this time frame. The one thing that I would say, well, two things I would say here. Number one, Meathead pointed out, hey, we're watching your feedback, continue to keep up that feedback, and they have shown over the release of Crate and moving into this that the developers are looking at feedback and are looking to adjust things. And then B, that's something the community can also adapt to and start encouraging new players and mid-game players. Don't chase the raid meta, right? Don't worry about farming characters that look like their only usefulness is going to be for the raid, which, to be fair, on Endor, there's not a lot of that. Most of these units are really good. And as people adapt to that, it may be less impactful. But I do think if you're one of those characters who spent the better part of the past several months working on things like Jawas and Tuskens for the Crate Raid, and you're not finished with those teams yet, and now you're looking at Endor coming and you're saying, you know what, I feel like my investment is wasted. I feel like the time I've spent on this is wasted. Well, I understand that frustration, and it's an unfortunate part of this, right? So that's a little bit of criticism that I would throw in here. The other thing they've talked about in this post is the raid cadence. People have complained and given negative feedback about having to replay the crate raid every 3 days. It was fun for the first couple of times, and then it became a chore. Well, they are adapting to that. They said, we're looking to take the 3-day cadence, adjust it to 6 days, with the intention of the change to allow players more downtime between raid launches. And to achieve this, we'll be maintaining the same duration of the raid, but we'll double the start cost and rewards so that players get the same high value, whether they get the same value of rewards had they run multiple raids in that same time frame. So, as it says, this will ease the stress of needing to constantly launch a raid after having completed one without affecting rewards. Great change. And then finally, the raid length. They said, we heard the feedback that raids, while awesome, are being released at a faster pace than what you find enjoyable, which is true. 6 months is just too quick turnaround, especially for those early and mid-game accounts that, again, can't really adjust with that kind of agility. So they said, for the upcoming Speederbike Pursuit Raid, we're estimating it will be featured between 8 or 9 months. I still think 8 or 9 months is a little bit too quick, again, for those early and mid-game accounts, but the community can adjust to that, number one, and start encouraging those players, hey, don't invest in things that you're not going to be happy with once the raid goes away. And then B is also going to be something that we know ahead of time, right? We had no idea how long Crate would last. It was all kind of assumptions. Now we know for sure. They've said that Endor Raid is estimated to be featured within 8 to 9 months. So, great post for CG. Go check this post out on the forums. There's going to be a link in the description, and there's going to be a link to the survey down at the bottom of this that Meathead on Discord has asked everybody, hey, please go do this survey. The developers are looking at this intently and wanting to make changes that players want. People get frustrated with game developers online, and I totally get that. One thing I think the community just in general can and should reward CG for is the level of communication they've had with us over this year. And the fact that they have shown several times now that they're willing to listen to player feedback. So go let your voice be heard. Hit up that feedback. Are you going for GL Leia at this point? Given the requirements that we know, I feel like it's just about a no-brainer for anybody, both early game and late game, to have her at least on your radar. I know on one of my accounts that I'm going to be shifting hard to focusing on that, and on the other account I'm going to finish up Profundity, and then I'm also going to be going there as well on that account. So it's going to be a fun ride. Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope everybody's day is going well, and may the Force be with you.